I'm a man who adores his wife. I've consistently followed my wife's wishes. However, in our 4th year of marriage, I realized I no longer loved her. Her care and attention felt like nagging. When she acted cute and playful, it made me feel nauseous. Even when she wore her embarrassing battle outfit, I had no reaction. But Lisa was the one I passionately pursued initially. The efforts I made, the tears I shed, I had to swallow them down. Then one day, I saw a conversation on her phone. The message read, "Lisa, just once, can we resolve our regrets?" She replied, "I'm sorry, Nathan. My husband loves me very much. I can't betray him." The other side asked, "If I hadn't backed off back then, would you have chosen me?" My wife replied, "I would have." That day, I was in a great mood. I ate 3 bowls of fried rice. Chapter 1. The sofa was a bit cramped. When Lisa sat down, her thighs in her super short skirt naturally pressed against mine. I silently moved my leg 2 centimeters away. A sigh of relief escaped my chest. She didn't notice, surrounded and talking to others. It was a class reunion organized by old classmates. As a former campus beauty, she was undoubtedly the center of attention. Lisa was composed, graceful, but with a hint of aloofness, her usual cold, distant demeanor. One female classmate said, "It's all about our Lisa. In just a few years, she's become a famous gold medal lawyer. She's the perfect female lead in a novel." Another female classmate teased, "James, you're lucky to marry Lisa." Who didn't know? Lisa was the big campus beauty back then. She used to receive bundles of love letters. You better keep an eye on her or the wolves outside will take advantage of the situation. Another male classmate laughed. Why worry? Back then, James's pursuit of Lisa was grand and spectacular. Now the second-generation rich kid is about to transform into a powerful CEO. All those monsters outside are no match for him. Amid all the flattery, a male classmate in the corner sneered, making things awkward. The man said, "Good fortune is truly something to envy." Back then, a rich second generation could snatch away love and still be glorified like this. Ha! As expected, people only hear the new one's laughter, but never see the old one's tears. As soon as he said that, the atmosphere became tense. I turned to look at the male classmate who had spoken. He was one of the people who had sent Lisa love letters back in the day. He was blushing, looking like a shrimp, clearly drunk. Lisa didn't speak, just furrowed her brows and tugged at my sleeve. I understood what she meant. In the past, if we met someone drunk, she wouldn't let me argue. So she remained silent, hoping I wouldn't say anything. Usually I wouldn't respond, but this time it was different. I said, "From the way you're talking, it almost sounds like you and Lisa were once a couple that I broke up." I massaged my shoulder and continued. The classmate froze, turning red and retorting, "I didn't say that. Don't twist my words. What I'm saying is about others. Do you dare say you didn't take advantage of the situation and snatch her from someone else?" All eyes were on me, glinting with excitement and curiosity. It was an ugly thing to say. Even though I didn't want to argue with him right now, I needed to make myself clear. I looked him straight in the eye and said, "Sorry to disappoint you, but when I was with Lisa, she was genuinely single. As for the others you're talking about, if you're referring to..." "Enough," Lisa suddenly interrupted, her voice displeased. She placed her chopsticks on the plate with just the right force, turned her head, and looked like she was about to get angry. Someone said, "James, it's just a joke between classmates. Don't take it seriously. If you do, you've already lost." The male classmate smirked, looking at me sarcastically. I furrowed my brow, thinking, where does that twisted logic come from? If I curse you a bit, you'll say, "Don't take it seriously." But just as I opened my mouth, a familiar sensation surged in my chest. This feeling had been with me recently. Whenever Lisa said something, did something, or even just heard her voice, I'd inexplicably feel something strange. It was like eating a leftover bun where you only discover the filling after the 3rd bite. Dry and wrinkled, empty inside, and the unpleasant smell overwhelmed the savory sauce. It became tasteless, and my interest dwindled. I suddenly felt uninterested and closed my mouth. The reunion ended in a lively atmosphere, and everyone bid each other farewell. As we turned to leave, Lisa reached out to hook her arm around mine. I slightly raised my hand and coldly avoided it. Lisa pursed her lips and gave me a glance. Chapter 2. Late at night, just before sleep, Lisa walked out of the bathroom with wet hair wrapped in a towel. She was a very disciplined woman. Even after so many years of marriage, she still practiced yoga and worked out every day without fail, maintaining her curvy figure. Coupled with her long legs and delicate features, she looked just as stunning as top-tier actresses. There was a time when I was completely enchanted by her appearance. But at that moment, as the door opened, I silently turned off my phone and closed my eyes. She quietly lay down beside me, her warm breath brushing against my ear. She asked, "James, are you asleep?" Her voice was soft, tinged with desire. When her delicate fingers reached for me, I opened my eyes and gently held her hand down. I said, "I'm a bit tired today." She paused for a moment, her voice tinged with displeasure. She asked, "Why are you always so tired?" "Well," I pushed her hand away and adjusted the blanket, saying, "I've been feeling more tired than usual. Lately, sorry." She didn't say anything for a long time and didn't move. I sighed in relief, preparing to sleep. But suddenly she spoke again. Her voice was cold as she said, "You don't have to do this." I turned sleepily and asked, "What?" She rolled her eyes and said, "Lately, you've been acting like this both at home and outside. Isn't it because of Nathan?" I froze for a moment, not understanding why she suddenly brought up Nathan. It took me a while to realize what she meant. Nathan was Lisa's past crush, the same other person mentioned by the male classmate earlier. The first time I saw Lisa, she and Nathan were standing together on the campus road, each holding a stack of books, watching me argue with someone. I had just crashed my new car into a fruit vendor's cart, and she was crying and demanding compensation for damages and medical fees. No one believed me when I said it was her fault for crashing into me, and they all blamed me for being wealthy and bullying the weak. When I was at a loss for words, a female voice spoke up. "When did traffic accident judgments depend on who is rich and who is poor?" I turned around and saw Lisa in a white dress, bathed in dappled sunlight, pure and beautiful, graceful, and poised. She captured my heart at first sight. Before I started pursuing Lisa, I specifically asked the academic genius Nathan about their relationship. Back then, they were often seen together, and their closeness was well known. Nathan adjusted his glasses, thought for a moment, and then smiled, saying, "We're classmates and neighbors." When Lisa heard this, she fell silent for a few seconds, furrowing her brow before speaking. "It's just as he said. I grew up in a wealthy family, and my parents taught me to speak directly, so I had never encountered a girl like Lisa before. After receiving a satisfactory answer, I began my loud and persistent pursuit of her. Lisa was from a rural area and had a strong sense of pride. She rejected me, saying she wouldn't date anyone during the 10 years of her student loan repayment. At that time, my whole world was consumed by Lisa. Her occasional smile, the rare times she agreed to have a meal with me, the tenderness she unconsciously showed, it made me excited and determined to keep going. I pursued her for 2 years, and she rejected me for 2 years. But I finally won her over because of a sudden illness her mother had. When they were unable to afford the $300,000 medical expenses, and Lisa was growing thinner after a failed loan application, I opened my savings and sincerely asked her to accept my help. That day, I saw her helplessness and vulnerability, her fragility and gratitude. 3 months later, on the 100th time I confessed to her, she blushed and threw herself into my arms. I was shaking with excitement, and she shed tears too. She said, "James, how can you love me so much? How am I so lucky?" When Nathan saw Lisa and me walking hand in hand at our wedding, his expression faltered for a moment. I came out of the bathroom and accidentally bumped into the two of them standing shoulder to shoulder by the balcony railing, talking. It looked just like the scene when I first met them. The faint sounds of their conversation drifted over in the wind. Lisa said, "I was waiting for you to speak up back then." Nathan replied, "James is a good man." We were fated, but we didn't end up together. At that time, I thought everyone has had their youthful crushes. He was married, and Lisa and I were doing well. We were each walking our own paths, and that was fine. But I never imagined life would suddenly shoot a return arrow, and one that came with great force. Half a year ago, Nathan got divorced. He had married a female streamer, but after the marriage, he was not only cheated on, but also manipulated by the woman, losing everything, including his son. He was heartbroken when he found Lisa. A woman's feelings for a past crush are inevitably filled with some different emotions. When Lisa received his first call, she was momentarily confused. Maybe she wanted to make up for her past regrets, or perhaps she wanted to show her kindness to see him regret what he lost. She helped him. For the past half year, she had been gathering evidence, accompanying Nathan to negotiate with his ex-wife, and even celebrating holidays with his son. At first, I expressed my negative feelings about it, but she looked at me with disappointment and said in a dejected tone, "Nathan is my neighbor and our old classmate. He was swindled by a bad woman, lost his property and had his child taken away. He was at his wit's end and nearly couldn't survive. Isn't it right to help him?" So later, when I couldn't reach her because I was sick, I saw her in Nathan's social media posts, like them looking for a house together or her hands playing with his golden retriever. Slowly, I started to feel exhausted. I stopped spending time with her, no longer preparing holiday surprises or gifts. With money and time on my hands, I focused on building my own gaming room, spending money on my own hobbies. So when she took Nathan and his son to the amusement park, I went out drinking and having fun with my friends. Nathan's social media posts no longer stirred any emotion in me. I almost reflexively liked them. Lisa was quite pleased with my generosity, and even bought a set of battle clothes, saying she wanted to reward me and make a baby. I expressed my excitement about her wearing that outfit, but when she hooked her arm around my neck and tried to get close, I instinctively coughed twice and pushed her away. That time, she paused for a moment. A complicated expression appeared on her face. And from that day on, I was shocked to realize something. I think I don't love Lisa anymore. This realization left me flustered. No wonder her care and attention only felt like nagging. No wonder her cutesy behavior just made me feel disgusted. I didn't love her anymore, but I didn't know what to do. Should I divorce her? What reason would I give? I don't love her anymore, but marriage isn't a game, and no one would believe such a reason. In everyone's eyes, I loved Lisa deeply, including Lisa herself. Is it because of a lack of emotional connection? Although her strong personality made her seem domineering and people viewed me as a henpecked husband, others saw her managing me as a sign of concern. Is it because of Nathan? But I knew Lisa well. She wasn't that kind of casual woman. Even though she had been spending more time with him recently, nothing had happened between them. At least not yet. I really didn't know what to do. Should I be a bad guy for once? I was trapped in a dilemma. The more I internalized it, the more I withered. Like a cocooned pupa trapped in a cocoon, life felt bleak and hopeless. Tonight, at this moment, when I heard Lisa mention Nathan, a surge of impulse rose within me. My parents taught me to speak plainly. When I was in love, I played it straight. Now that I didn't love her anymore, I should do the same. I said, "Lisa." In the darkness, I said in a deep voice, "How about we—" Lisa coldly snorted, interrupting me and said, "Don't bring up Nathan. I don't want to hear it, and I don't want to explain." She turned over with some displeasure. Her cold voice continued, "This weekend is my mother's birthday. Don't keep that long face. I don't want her to worry." I looked out the window at the bright moon. I sighed quietly. Chapter 3. Have an art gallery. It was a birthday gift my mother gave me when I turned 20. She said, "When you're tired both in body and mind, you'll always need a place to think and rest. Don't let negative emotions push you around. Don't make any decisions when you're not thinking clearly." In the last 2 years, I've spent more and more time in this gallery. On my mother-in-law's birthday, I was a few minutes late arriving at the private room in the restaurant because I had to receive a batch of paintings that had just arrived. As soon as I walked in, I saw Nathan. He was warmly toasting my mother-in-law, speaking rapidly in their hometown dialect. They laughed together from time to time. Lisa was sitting on the sofa beside them, her legs crossed, sipping tea with a slight smile. When she saw me come in, Lisa furrowed her brows slightly. She asked, "James, didn't I tell you to come earlier? What could possibly be more important?" "Today?" I handed the gift to my mother-in-law and briefly explained. She didn't take it, just glancing at me with her drooping eyelids. She said, "You're quite full of yourself, making everyone wait for you. Do you look down on your country bumpkin mother-in-law?" I didn't say anything, just placed the gift in front of her and sat down in an empty seat. That's how my mother-in-law always spoke. For a long time after we got married, my mother-in-law would often make sarcastic remarks, implying that I was just another man in the line of suitors for her daughter and didn't even rank. I even discussed it with Lisa a few times. I didn't understand. Even if we weren't family, given that I had saved her life with my money when she was on the brink of death, she shouldn't treat me with such hostility. But Lisa responded, "My mom had a hard life when she was young, and she's always been this way with me. You need to be more understanding." However, for the past few months, I suddenly stopped caring about my mother-in-law's attitude towards me. Her sarcasm or cold shoulder didn't affect me anymore. It felt as if an old woman I didn't know was talking about someone else's affairs. Nathan smiled and said, "James, Aunt insisted I come join the fun today. I hope you don't mind." I looked at him, smiled, and said, "I don't mind at all. Feel free to come." He paused before continuing, "I know I've asked your wife for help so many times recently. Please don't take it personally and don't let it affect your relationship." I smiled and said, "Not at all. You're both fellow villagers and classmates. It's only right to help." I grabbed some grapes from the table and popped one in my mouth, feeling thirsty after unloading the paintings earlier. Nathan said, "Just to let you know, Lisa mentioned she couldn't get a cab, so I offered to pick her up. Then she said it was too much of a detour and didn't want to bother me, so we came together. Can you believe it? She's still the same, never wanting to bother anyone." I popped another grape in my mouth and casually said, "You didn't need to. Pick me up. I have a driver. And as for the car ride, there's no misunderstanding. She can ride with whoever she wants. There's no need to tell me." Nathan looked mildly surprised, offering an awkward smile. I turned my head and saw Lisa staring at me intently, her gaze tinged with displeasure. That look again. In the past, whenever I saw that look, I knew she was upset, and I'd start wondering what I had said wrong. But now, I couldn't be bothered to figure it out. During the meal, the three of them spoke in their hometown dialect while I silently stared at my phone. Suddenly, a glass of juice was moved over to me. Lisa's voice was soft as she said, "Honey, you seem to really like these grapes. I had the waiter make you a glass of juice." I was a little speechless. I said, "I don't usually drink juice. I prefer to eat the fruit directly." Then I looked at Nathan and said, "Do you like this? Go ahead and have it." I moved the glass toward him and said, "No need to be shy. Take it." Lisa suddenly stood up and coldly said, "I'm going to the bathroom." Halfway through, I stepped outside to take a call from an employee. When I returned to the private room, I overheard my mother-in-law's raised voice in her dialect. "You've been married to him for so long, but he's so suspicious of people. That villa he bought before the wedding, 4 years and still no transfer of ownership. Not even adding your name to the deed. He's plotting against you." I froze and stopped pushing the door open. Yes, I could understand their dialect. When we first got married, I did a lot for Lisa, and to understand my mother-in-law's words, I specifically learned their dialect. Lisa's voice sounded impatient as she said, "Mom, I've told you before, stop saying these things. James loves me. He's done so much for our family. If he hears you say this, he'll think we're after his family's money." My mother-in-law sighed and said, "Sigh. If it weren't for my illness back then, you wouldn't have sacrificed your happiness to be with him. Nathan wouldn't have married that kind of woman. But it's not too late. Things are different now. He used to support you when he had money, but now he's helped you get your law firm up and running, and business is booming. Divorce doesn't seem like a big deal anymore." Nathan spoke up. "Aunt, it's not right for you to say that." I slowly opened my eyes wider. If Lisa agreed, The room fell silent for a moment before Lisa's cold voice broke the silence. She said, "I can't betray James. We're husband and wife. Mom, he helped you in the past. Don't say things like this again." I felt a rush of mixed emotions. I didn't know whether I should feel happy or disappointed. Chapter 4. Lisa and I finally had an argument because of Nathan's dog. That day, when I came home from outside, I was shocked to find Nathan sitting on the sofa with the golden retriever that had appeared in his social media posts lying at his feet. He smiled and explained, "Lisa left some legal documents at home, so we came back to grab them." My gaze landed on the golden retriever, which was fiercely tugging on a crochet toy with its mouth. It was the same crocheted orange cat my mom had made for me before she passed away. She said, "I've given you many things, but those were bought with money. I want to make something for you by hand before I leave. Every stitch is my love for you. When you see this crocheted cat, it will be like seeing me." After my mom passed away, I placed the crocheted cat on the TV cabinet in the living room so I could see it every day. I was even afraid to touch it, worried I might ruin it or make the yarn fray. Now that crocheted cat was in the golden retriever's mouth, being pawed and tugged violently. The yarn snapped and the stuffing flew everywhere. A buzzing sound filled my head. My mouth couldn't make a sound, my face twisted in a snarl, and my movements became stiff as I tried to pry the dog's mouth open. My mind couldn't think. Only Nathan's exclamation and the dog's desperate howls filled my ears. Lisa came out from the room screaming, "James, have you lost your mind? Why are you abusing the dog? Is it really worth it? It's just a few bucks." I shakily lifted the torn crocheted cat in front of her, growling, "A few bucks? Is this really just a few bucks to you?" It seemed like Lisa suddenly remembered the origin of the crocheted cat. A look of panic spread across her face as she rushed to embrace me. Her voice trembled as she said, "I'm sorry, James, I'm so sorry. We'll get it fixed. We'll find someone to repair it. I promise it'll be good as new." I gritted my teeth and slapped her across the face, yelling, "Get out! Get out of here!" Lisa's head snapped to the side, and 5 finger-shaped marks quickly appeared on her fair skin, making the imprint stark against her complexion. She looked frozen, her eyes wide open as she stared at me. "Lisa, are you all right?" Nathan rushed over in alarm, frantically touching Lisa's face, then turned to me, shouting angrily, "How could you hit a woman? What's this nonsense over some broken thing? How much do you want? I'll pay you 100, 1,000, whatever. It was my dog that ruined it, but what kind of man hits a woman? Come at me instead. Are you even her husband?" Before he could finish, I grabbed his collar, caught him off guard, and punched him square in the nose. I was about to throw a few more punches when a wave of fury engulfed me, as if I was trapped under a sealed dome. The outside world grew distant and muffled, the scene before my eyes fragmented into frozen snapshots. The shredded crocheted cat, Nathan's bloody mouth, Lisa's incredulous gaze. Suddenly my vision went black and I collapsed backward. "James," I dreamt. On the green grass by the river, my mother was sitting under a tree, wearing a brightly patterned flower dress, gazing into the distance. I ran over happily, shouting, "Mom!" She turned and smiled at me, saying something. Her voice was soft and warm, clear in my ears. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't make out what she was saying. I was frantic, drenched in sweat, desperate. I opened my eyes. By the bedside, Lisa was staring at me. I instinctively turned my head, not wanting to look at her at all. She said, "It's fixed. You can take a look." In the silent room, Lisa's voice felt harsh to my ears. A brand new crocheted cat appeared before my eyes. I took it from her, ran my hand over it, and said, "It's not the same one." The yarn was replaced. The stuffing, too. It wasn't the original. Lisa bit her lip, silent for a moment, then spoke softly. "It's all my fault today. Nathan felt really guilty when he found out what happened. He stayed here to wait for you to wake up and apologize and didn't leave until very late. Please don't blame him. I spent the whole night fixing the cat. I know it's not enough to make up for everything, so you can blame me, hate me. I'll accept it all." I sighed deeply, turned my head, and quietly stared at her. Her fair, delicate face still bore the faint marks of my slap, making her always so concerned about her appearance look extremely vulnerable. Lisa sensed my gaze lingering on her face and relaxed a little, the corner of her lips curling into a smile, her expression softening. She said, "Honey, I knew you'd spoil me the most. You won't really stay mad at me. Yes, you were a bit impulsive today, but I understand. Just don't let Mom know about this. From now on, I'll keep my distance from Nathan." I said, "Let's divorce." I suddenly spoke, cutting her off. Lisa tilted her head, clearly thinking she must have misheard. She asked, "What did you say?" I calmly repeated, "I said let's divorce." Lisa's brows furrowed deeply. She took a deep breath, her voice tinged with restraint as she said, "James, I know you're still upset, but harsh words hurt. Didn't we agree to never mention divorce again?" I knew she was referring to the time a year after we married, when my company hit financial trouble and almost went bankrupt. I was extremely busy, and she got angry, saying I never spent time with her. We hadn't gone on a vacation in a long time. In the heat of the moment, I mentioned divorce. Lisa was heartbroken and immediately packed her things and moved out. I spent an entire month full of regret and sadness. In the end, after apologizing to my mother-in-law countless times, I convinced Lisa to move back in. That night, as Lisa lay in my arms looking so wronged, I promised her I would never say such things again. I sighed deeply and said, Lisa stood up and interrupted me. "All right, I don't want to hear this right now. You're angry, and I'll pretend I didn't hear it. Also, you hit me today. Technically, that's a major issue. There's no excuse for hitting anyone, let alone me. But I understand your feelings, and I'm willing to understand you. But you can't keep going down this path. You need to pull yourself together. Get some rest tonight. I have a case tomorrow and need to prepare some materials. I'll go for now." After Lisa left, I silently gazed out the window. It was pitch, dark, not a star in sight, like an impenetrable cover. Chapter 5. In the next few days, Lisa seemed like a different person. She no longer bossed me around or made me guess her moods. Instead, she spoke to me gently, taking great care of me. She even had the nanny help her while she cooked meals herself, and she no longer brought up Nathan. If this change had happened, a year ago I would have been overjoyed. But now I just felt irritated. The sound of her coming home, her slippers shuffling across the floor, her quiet conversations with the nanny, and the sound of her showering in the bathroom, all of it grated on my nerves. It felt like damp, gloomy moss creeping and spreading on my neck, arms, and legs, densely covering me. I went back to my old home. 3 years after my mother passed, my dad remarried his assistant and started a new life. I didn't oppose it, and even gave a heartfelt speech at their wedding. But after living there for over 20 years with all the memories of my mother, it felt strange having another woman live in the house. It made me unconsciously reduce the number of times I visited. Thankfully, I had the gallery. My own gallery. I couldn't thank my mother enough for her foresight. My dad was very happy to see me and instructed my stepmother to bring me water and fruit. In the study, I told him about my plans for divorce. He paused for a few seconds, then said calmly, "Lisa already told me about what happened. I think it was just an accident. You don't need to take it too seriously. You're a man. You don't have to sweat the small stuff. You can't keep holding on to it. Even if your mom were still alive, she would have said the same." I shook my head. "It's not about that," I said. My dad studied me for a moment. Then his expression darkened slightly. He quietly asked, Has she been? I replied, "No, nothing like that." He let out a relieved sigh. "Do you have someone else?" I frowned and said, "No." He asked again, "Then did she bring it up?" I answered, "Neither. I just don't love her anymore." My dad fell into silence. After a long while, he spoke in a low voice. "James, what did your mom and I always tell you? Think things through before making any decisions, especially when it comes to marriage. Don't act impulsively like before and regret it later." I stood up and softly said, "Dad, I've already made up my mind. I'm just here to let you know in advance. My dad looked at me in silence and sighed. When I left, my stepmother followed me out. She gave me a long look, then pursed her lips and said, James, you're getting older. You should be more mature, more steady. Saying divorce like that, do you realize how many complications it will cause? A family like ours can't afford a divorce. If you can just make do and live with it. You can't keep making your dad deal with your problems. He's getting older. As his child, it's time for you to start thinking about him. I frowned, saying, nothing. Lisa looked at me with a resentful gaze and said, James, is it really that hard for me to not contact Nathan from now on? The nanny who had watched me grow up had been with me since my mother's passing. She said, Mrs. Liu is actually a good person. Mr. Wang finding such a good woman is not easy. Don't let the fact that she sometimes loses her temper with you fool. You, it's a sign that she cares. If you keep sulking like this, aren't you just pushing your wife away? In my dream, the old James sarcastically said to me, You chased her back with all your might, so what right do you have to complain now? That night, when the nanny was off, Lisa went to the gym. I had a headache, so I went to bed early. When I woke up, I felt a fever coming on. Everything around me spun, and I felt terrible. I glanced at my phone. It was 11 p.m. I mustered the strength to call Lisa. No answer. I immediately dialed 120 and gave them the house password. When I woke up in the hospital, Lisa was sitting beside my bed. As soon as I opened my eyes, she anxiously hugged my arm, her voice trembling. She said, I'm so sorry, James. There was traffic last night and I didn't get home in time. I'm glad you called 120 yourself. The doctor said it would have been much worse if you had waited any longer. I gently pulled away from her. I'm fine now. You should go back to the office. She looked at me in disbelief and asked, James, I'm your wife. Of course I need to be here with you in the hospital. What's going on with you lately? I didn't respond and closed my eyes. As Lisa slept by my bedside, I saw Nathan's latest post on social media. It read, The dog had indigestion last night and it made someone so anxious that they cried. We went to one hospital after another, just like taking care of a child. What I want to say is, in the end, the girl who's always been willing to share everything with me has been there all along. The photo showed the golden retriever sleeping on someone's lap. The person's face was slightly blurred, but I recognized Lisa immediately. When the doctor checked me earlier, they mentioned that my phone had received a call from my wife around 1 a.m. That's when she found out I was in the hospital and rushed over. Meaning Lisa didn't return home until after 1 a.m. and realized I was missing. I stared at Lisa's sleeping face. She must have been exhausted after the night's events. Before she fell asleep, she had been staring at her phone, her expression grim with a hint of melancholy. I felt a pang in my chest and picked up her phone. The password hadn't changed. It was set to the day I confessed to her. When I unlocked it, I saw her WeChat messages. The message read, Lisa, I acted on impulse just now, but I like you so much. I just want to settle our regrets this one time. Lisa replied, I'm sorry, Nathan. My husband loves me very much. I can't betray him. Nathan asked, If I hadn't backed off then, would you have chosen me? Lisa replied, I would have. I was speechless. Well then, this was great. Chapter 6. When Lisa woke up, she saw James sitting by the window eating fried rice. He was eating it bite by bite, savoring it, enjoying every mouthful. She was momentarily stunned. It had been a long time since she had seen James so relaxed. Yes, relaxed. That was the word that first came to her mind when she met him. That day, he had been arguing, but when he listened to the vendor, he paid such close attention as if listening to a lecture. When the vendor twisted the facts, James's expression changed from shock to confusion, even showing a hint of curiosity, but never anger. Lisa knew that he was a rich second-generation man, someone who never had to deal with problems himself and thus had no experience with arguments. That day, she, usually so distant and cold, broke her character which she had kept for over 20 years and spoke out in his defense. Nathan was surprised. She was surprised too, but she felt happy, relieved, and elated, because she saw the way James looked at her. his eyes wide with admiration. When James confessed his love to her with flowers in hand, she could hardly believe her ears. How could it be? How could someone like him, like someone like her? In the eyes of others, she was cold and distant, unapproachable. But only she knew that her outward indifference and distance were merely a cover for her deep-seated insecurity and fear. Her father was a gambler and passed away early. Her mother gave her deep love, but also showed a sharp, petty, and mercenary side that Lisa despised. It was a guilt she could never escape. She had surrendered to fate and accepted the life that seemed most suited to her. Just the first car James drove made it clear to her that he and she were from entirely different worlds. So without hesitation, she rejected him. But he stubbornly pursued her for 2 years. His pursuit was loud, everyone knew about it. She was reserved, someone who was reluctant to express her true feelings, and it was hard for her to understand how someone could be so straightforward and public with their affection. It was only much later that she realized. He could be so bold because he wasn't lacking in love. Though she rejected him again and again, she had to admit that James's persistent love slowly healed the wounds of her family, helping her regain confidence and find a sense of self-worth. But her mother's $300,000 medical bill quickly brought her back to reality. For the first time, she truly understood the destructive power of poverty. When James sincerely took out his $300,000 from his small savings and offered to help her, she was moved, but she also wanted to laugh. Their whole village barely scraped together $50,000, and he called that his small savings. The difference between them, so stark and almost mocking, hurt her deeply at that moment, and she began to criticize James, picking apart his flaws to cover up her own sense of inadequacy in front of him. After James invested in her law firm, she became even prouder. She enjoyed the admiration from James as well as the praise from her friends who teased her about how she had turned her husband into a puppy. She truly believed that she was independent and strong, invincible in the face of anything. She knew her mother sometimes spoke too harshly to James, but she didn't mind. People who've lived at the bottom for too long often have a rough edge, a sense of aggression. Without that, they can't take advantage of limited resources. After all, it was her mother. James should tolerate it. And in fact, James did. Though he occasionally said something, he would end up sighing, saying, all right, just let it go this time. But could you say something nice about me to your mother next time? She promised she would. But before she could say anything good about James in front of her mother, Nathan suddenly appeared. He showed up in a daze, asking her for help. Lisa's feelings for Nathan were complicated. In school, they had been close due to their shared hometown and high school background. She had always thought, even though they never explicitly said it, that she and Nathan shared an unspoken understanding. They had similar backgrounds. They both came from humble beginnings, yet made their way into this prestigious school. But she didn't expect James's response to be, just a fellow villager and classmate. Lisa felt a twinge of resentment. She knew that during that time, Nathan had developed a crush on a small-time streamer. But the resentment didn't last long. It wasn't about betrayal in love, but rather the embarrassment and frustration of being discarded by someone from her past. Half a year ago, Nathan suddenly called her, pleading for her help in a low voice. Lisa, for a moment, was caught off guard. The man who had once abandoned her was now desperately seeking her help, his every word filled with humility. This gave her an inexplicable sense of satisfaction. So, in her newly adopted persona of an independent woman, she helped him resolve his issues. Nathan's gaze toward her was filled with both admiration and regret. During this time, Lisa reveled in the key satisfaction of getting back at the man who had hurt her. She completely ignored James. She actually sensed that James had started changing over the past few days. He no longer prepared gifts for her, didn't hug or kiss her, didn't look her in the eye, and no longer complimented her no matter how she dressed. But she didn't pay much attention to it. She was sure James loved her deeply. It was just that he was a little jealous, thinking she was getting too close to Nathan. Once she felt her emotional needs were satisfied, she would just act cute with James and everything would be fine. She had never met anyone as easy to appease as James. Most of the time, all she needed to do was act cute, pout, or look pitiful. He would immediately relax, smile, and say, all right, who can resist? You and you're my wife. But when did she realize that this time was different from all the others? That night at the reunion, when she said a few things to him in front of everyone, he didn't say much, but when they left, he naturally avoided her hand. She had once seen a question online: what is physiological love? At the time, she had laughed happily because she was sure James's love for her was just that, a physiological reaction. But this time, he had avoided her outstretched hand. That detail made her uneasy. She wanted James to return to how he was before. What should she do to make that happen? James and she had always been harmonious in their physical relationship. Her body, her skin, her soft moans had brought James countless moments of pleasure. So this time, it should work. She put on a set of lingerie that made her feel shy even to wear. But James pushed her away. He said, "I'm too tired." Chapter 7. He spoke calmly with no trace of emotion. Lisa felt a mixture of anger, grievance, and an indescribable sense of helplessness. At the same time, Nathan began to deliberately create subtle, ambiguous touches. His hand brushed against her calf when picking up a file, his breath on her ear when he spoke to her, and the way he casually put his arm around her shoulders while talking about his past with his ex-wife. Unconsciously, she was searching for some kind of balance. It was as if a voice deep within her soul was telling her, "You are always excellent. There will always be someone who bends for you, if not this one, then that one." So she allowed herself to indulge in the unspoken, ambiguous atmosphere with Nathan, like she had done before. But the cat that had been torn apart snapped her back to reality. She saw James like this for the first time, broken. His eyes were filled with anger, resolution, even disgust. Lisa was shocked, unable to believe it, unable to accept it. Is this the James she knew? How could he look at her like that? She felt a panic rise in her chest, an indescribable deep panic. It felt as if something that had once been rooted deep within her soul was slowly drifting away from her. She consciously began to treat him more gently, thinking that it would surely make him happy. She had always been so sharp and harsh with James before, and most of their arguments were because of her bad temper. With Nathan, she had intentionally reduced contact. But James not only casually mentioned divorce, but he also seemed so unmotivated, speaking in a tone that was detached and indifferent. To be honest, she was a little angry. She felt like she had done everything right. But James remained unmoved. Maybe she shouldn't have been so kind to him. Maybe he had gotten too comfortable. That night, after finishing her yoga session, she received a call from Nathan. He sounded urgent, saying that his dog was sick and might not make it, and asked if she wanted to come. She immediately agreed. After returning from the vet, Nathan suddenly said to her with a downcast expression, "Lisa, I was just thinking back to when we were in school, how we always stayed by each other's side. I wish I had been able to see my own feelings back then." Perhaps it was because James had been distant lately, making her feel neglected, or maybe the endorphins from yoga were still surging through her. Somehow, they kissed. From the sofa, to the bedroom, to the bed. Nathan was more frantic and restless than she had expected. He tore off his own clothes, then roughly stripped hers off. He did many things that James never would, as if a wave after wave of passion swept through her. But at some point, amidst the chaos, she heard a roar. "Lisa!" It was James. She suddenly snapped back to reality, quickly shoved Nathan away, grabbed her clothes, and rushed out of the room. James was eating another bowl of fried rice. Lisa stood still, frozen. She asked, "James, are you very hungry?" James turned his head and looked at her with clear eyes. He said, "Yeah, I'm really hungry. It feels like I haven't had such good fried rice in a long time." Seeing how content he was, Lisa's mood suddenly lifted. The guilt and self-reproach from the previous night vanished in an instant. She smiled and walked over, her tone light and filled with a sense of change and ease. She said, "Honey, I've always loved you. Everything's in the past now. We'll be fine from now on." James didn't respond. He focused on finishing the last bite of rice, then took a tissue to wipe his mouth before saying, "Lisa, I'm going to be away for a while." She asked, Where to? James smiled faintly and said, The gallery is holding a Sea City-themed exhibition. I need to visit the area for a while. Chapter 8. Lisa looked at the eyes that had been etched into her heart from the first time they met. Her mood lifted, and she felt a sense of relief. She lowered her gaze and said, When you come back, let's have a child. James left. He packed a suitcase, wore a casual outfit he hadn't worn in a while, and with headphones and sunglasses on, hummed a song as he waved goodbye to her. Lisa called him frequently. Sometimes he answered, sometimes he didn't. He said, The signal is poor in the mountains. For some reason, despite James having been away many times for business trips, Lisa felt an overwhelming desire to be with him this time. When the calls wouldn't go through, she searched online for information about Sea City, its sights, mountain streams, and climate. She imagined James happily moving through it all. She chuckled to herself, unsure what was happening to her, but she couldn't stop. It was as if only this way she could feel a little more at peace. Nathan came to find her. Since she had cut off contact with him, he came directly to her. The day after Lisa had fled in panic, Nathan had asked that question, whether she would choose him. Lisa had answered seriously, yes. At that time, she would have. After all, before Nathan confessed his feelings for her, they were only a step away from breaking the unspoken barrier between them. On another level, giving him this answer was also offering him some comfort. For Lisa, the regret from her youth of being abandoned had found closure that night when Nathan had begged her not to leave, even desperately trying to possess her. She had successfully proven that Nathan had made a mistake that he could never make right. Nathan came with alcohol. He looked at her with sadness and said, I'm here to say goodbye. Lisa bit her lip, silent. Goodbye. Goodbye to the past youth. Goodbye to the insecure girl she used to be. They drank cup after cup, from day to night. Their gazes grew more blurred. The blood flowed more fiercely. And she slowly lost her senses. Eventually, when the door lock clicked open, and James appeared. In the doorway, dragging his suitcase, Lisa and Nathan were on the living room carpet. Sweating, entangled, unable to part. In a panic, Lisa met James's eyes. She froze, unsure how to break free from the entangled arms and legs, her voice nothing but a gasping breath from her long exhalations. Long after, when her brain cells had aged and forgotten many things from her youth, she would still clearly remember that moment. The sticky, damp skin, the fresh, cold air rushing in through the open door, and James's slightly pleased tone. Lisa, let's get a divorce. The day they went to get their divorce certificate, James's father suddenly rushed in and slapped her hard across the face. He angrily shouted, My son has never been humiliated like this in his life, and now because of you, he has lost all his dignity. Father Wang slapped himself. He gritted his teeth and said, Back then, his mother didn't approve of James marrying you. I fought hard to persuade her. Now I see I was blind. It's my fault as his father. Lisa stood motionless, her head deeply lowered. Beside them, Mother Liu didn't back down and started arguing with Father Wang. She mocked, Stop pretending. You Wang family never had anything good. Who in their right mind signs a prenuptial agreement? Even in divorce, you've already calculated how to split the assets. My Lise has been with your Wang family all these years, and you still haven't even put her name on the villa deed. You two, father and son, are disgusting. It's better to divorce sooner. She slapped Lisa's back harshly. She said, Why aren't you saying anything? Just standing there and taking it. After the divorce, we won't be family anymore, so what's there to be afraid of? Lisa felt as if their voices were far away. It seemed pointless. She stood there not leaving, only because she wanted to see James one last time. The divorce process was so fast. From the day James mentioned divorce to now, she had only seen him 3 times. She had so much to say to him. She wanted to confess, to beg him, to ask for another chance. But James, since that day, always wore a mask and showed a calm demeanor whenever they met. She felt both sad and heartbroken, convinced that he was just pretending. How sad it must be for James, who loved her so much. At that moment, James walked out, talking on the phone. Lisa stepped forward and opened her mouth. James raised his hand, signaling for her to wait, and quietly said into the phone, "Sorry, I'm conducting an interview, just a moment." "What school did you graduate from?" he continued, walking toward the tree nearby. The call lasted for a long time. Father Wang left, and Mother Lu also left. Only Lisa remained quietly waiting, trying to calm down, repeatedly thinking about what she would say next. Finally, James hung up the phone. Lisa bit her lip, feeling nervous. James looked up, gazing at the tall tree above, let out a long sigh and started walking away. His steps were light and carefree, without a glance back at her. He had completely forgotten about her. Lisa stood frozen in place, like a statue, unmoving. Chapter 9. After the divorce, Lisa went to see James a few times. She thought that the divorce was just the end of a punishment for a mistake, and that she could go back to the beginning, start anew. At that time, James had pursued her, and now it would be her turn to pursue him. But James's attitude toward her left her feeling lost. There was no sarcasm, no disgust. They would sip tea and chat a little. He treated her as though she were an ordinary old friend. A few times when guests arrived, he would unhesitatingly leave her behind and walk toward others. She had no choice but to silently come and silently leave. Nathan came to see her a few times. Sometimes he came alone, sometimes with Liu's mother. Each time she would scream at him to leave. Once, when she couldn't take it anymore, she slapped Nathan across the face. In return, Nathan pushed her against the wall, cursing, "Stop pretending! Did I force you? You clearly had feelings for me, too. Can you blame me? You say I got you drunk, but if you didn't have those intentions, would you have brought a man back to your place? You're a slut and still want to keep up appearances. You still want to go back to James? Dream on. He doesn't want you anymore." When he was in Sea City, he posted about his wife having someone else in her heart, whether he should be magnanimous and step aside, saying that if his wife cheated, he would leave, and that when love reaches its peak, it should step back. I was stupid and fell for it. Later, I found out that his posts were only visible to me. He left to give you and me the chance to say those things, to provoke me into seeking you out. He even said when he would return, just to make sure we crossed paths. How about that? Your so-called loving husband also has a side you don't know about, right? Lisa listened in a daze, struggling to process each word. She remembered how he had stopped having any physical contact with her. She remembered how he no longer showed her any emotions or affection. She remembered the divorce he had mentioned that day. It was all true. He had already decided to leave her back then. Lisa hadn't been to the law firm in a while. The assistant called her to report bad news. She didn't want to listen and didn't feel like hearing it. She used to be full of energy, handling case after case because she wanted to see the approval in James's eyes. But now it seemed meaningless. Until one day, when she was about to leave, the assistant called again, saying, "The firm is insolvent." She was stunned for a moment. Then she laughed lightly, almost indifferently, and went to the gallery. She visited the gallery almost every day, but she no longer appeared in front of James. She only sat at the cafe across the street, watching him through the glass window. One time, James looked at her with a troubled expression and said, "Lisa, can you stop showing up in front of me? Every time I see you, it brings back bad memories." Her face turned pale, and her fingertips trembled as she left. Afterward, she only watched him from afar. She watched as he walked into the gallery, facing the morning sun. She watched him laughing, as he took colleagues out for lunch. She watched him working hard, unloading paintings with the workers. She was both happy and sad. Happy because James had finally turned back into the cheerful young man he used to be. Sad because everything about him no longer belonged to her. She and her mother had no place to stay, so they rented a small house. Her mother cried and screamed every day, sometimes angrily cursing. She cursed, "It's all that damn man's fault. If it weren't for him wanting a divorce, we wouldn't be in this miserable situation. We don't even have a house now. He took all the money with him. He ruined everything." Lisa sarcastically asked her mother. Weren't we always living like this? We're just back to where we started. How can you blame James? Didn't James save your life? One day, her mother didn't return after going out to collect scrap late at night, so Lisa got up from bed and went to look for her. She found her being dragged by a woman who was yelling at her, saying, "You old hag, throwing your old cheap clothes at me? Are you crazy? If you don't pay for this, don't even think about leaving." Lisa recognized the woman, Nathan's ex-wife, and Nathan was silently standing not far away. It seemed they had gotten back together. Nathan looked at her from the dark corner, both embarrassed and guilty, yet he remained silent. Lisa paid the woman the last 5,000 yuan, and after that, she was left with nothing. She decided to leave the city with her mother. Her hometown had a house and an orange orchard. At least there, she and her mother could survive. Before leaving, she went to the gallery one last time. This time, she got a little closer, hoping to hear James's voice. James was chatting and drinking with a few friends. He was laughing heartily, looking carefree, just like the young man he used to be. Someone asked, "James, how did your divorce go so smoothly? You didn't even let her take the villa." James sighed and said, "I promised my mom when I got married that for the first 3 years, I wouldn't add my wife's name to the house deed." His friend asked in surprise, "But you've been married for 4 years, right?" James smiled and answered candidly, "Yeah, but in the 4th year I decided I didn't want to add her name anymore." That night, Lisa left on the green train. In the drowsy train compartment, she silently stared out the window. A full moon hung high in the sky, shining down on the dark earth. Once, she had her own moon. It shone on her, warmed her, nurtured her. She grew roots, blossomed, and looked at the world with her head held high. But now, the moon no longer shone, so she returned to the dark silence, back to where she began. No light remained.